G'day and welcome back to Down the Shed with Byron, where today we're replacing the front brakes on the VX Calais. Tools for the job: breaker bar, couple of ratchets, a few basic sockets, 12mm, 19mm. I also think in some cases it's a 13mm, but we'll work that out later. An 18mm spanner, 10mm spanner, wire brush, one person brake bleeding bottle, a few consumables, rags, bit of brake clean, brake lube, some copper grease, bit of Loctite, a hammer, block of wood. Now, things to make it a little bit easier: a little wire brush on a drill, rattle gun, and a brake caliper piston pushing tool. Now, if you haven't got that, I'll show you a G-clamp version of that as well. And then some parts. So, depending on what you want to run what you want. I can put the part numbers for these in the description. Cracking the front wheel nuts off, just to make this easier. Then jacking the car up underneath the chassis there. Placing a jack stand underneath the Z-bar front push. Once I've got the wheel off, I like to just throw it under the car for insurance. At this stage here, I like to remove that little dust cap off the brake bleeding nipple. And we'll give that nipple just a crack initially, just so it's loosened up, and then we'll just nip it up for now. I'll show you that after. With a 12mm and an 18mm, so the 18mm locks onto the slide bolt there, and then the retaining bolt is a 12mm in this case. Just crack them off. What I like to do from here is rotate the caliper up. With the caliper undone, I like to do that so you can rotate it up. You can pop your brake pads out now. With the one person brake bleeding bottle, just attach it to the strut and put it on that bleed nipple. Now going back to that bleed nipple and just undoing it, maybe an 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn, which is enough for fluid to run back out. Now, this is because you need to push these pistons back in, and you don't want to be reusing the old fluid out of those. So what we'll do is we'll put a old brake pad back into there. We'll put that brake caliper tool in place and wind that in. Now just swapping it from one side to the other, just to make sure we push both those pistons in straight. Now this is just another way you can do it with a G-clamp if you don't have one of those brake caliper tools. Now with our pistons pushed all the way back, we'll be able to tighten off that bleed nipple now to stop any fluid coming out. What I'll do now is just slide that caliper out of the way, which will just pop off just like that, and we'll just place that on that lower Z bar there. Now we'll remove the actual caliper bracket, holds it to the hub. Now there's two 19mm bolts here that hold the bracket on. Just crack that off. With both those bolts removed now, we can take that bracket off and you can clean it up on the bench or wherever. Moving on to the disc. Now, these are normally seized onto here, and if you're machining this or going to reuse it, use a block of wood, give it a hit at 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and that'll come off. Otherwise, if you're not going to reuse this disc, give it a decent belt and it'll come off. At this stage, you want to give this hub assembly a decent wire brush and clean. If you don't have a power tool, just use this little sort of wire toothbrush and give that a decent clean so there's no crud on there before you put the new disc on. At this stage, it's also good just to double check your wheel bearing and give it a spin and see if you can hear any rumble through there. Otherwise, give it a clean with some brake clean. And if you'd like to, just give this area just a thin coat of copper grease or Never Sees. Now, before fitting your rotors, there's normally an instruction manual of what's going on. It basically just tells you to clean that hub like I did. Now your new rotors. Now I'm using Pedders, but depending on what brand you've got, some of them won't be painted like that. And there'll be a special residue on there just to keep them from rusting. Grab some brake clean and always just clean the inside one first. Just give that a wipe over. Also giving that mating surface in there a bit of a wipe over. Now install. And what I've done there is just put the wheel nut on just to hold the rotor straight, and we'll just give that another clean now as well. Now these Pedders ones have got the paint on them, so that way once you do the bedding in procedure, that literally all burns off. Now moving on to the caliper bracket, these little metal retaining clips just clip in, so you can pop them off. And what we'll do is we'll just give each surface a nice clean up with a bit of a wire brush and some brake clean. With all those surface areas cleaned up, next thing to move on to is the slides. So you want to make sure that these slides move in and out nice and freely. And by doing that, just checking, making sure you've got plenty of grease in there. If you don't, give them a clean. And I like to use the Bendix brake lubrication. Or if you haven't got that, a bit of grease will be alright. Put them back together, and same with the other end, which is on that caliper. Making sure it's nice and smooth. Now reinstall our brake caliper bracket, and I like to put just a touch of medium strength Loctite on the bolts and tighten them up. Now that's done up tight, put these little retaining shims back in. Now where the rubbing surface is, or where they sit mount, I put a bit of that copper grease there. These clip back in, and when you're not doing it on camera, they go in straight away. Alright, so that's that one, and the top one. Now to installing the brake pads, you'll notice this one here has got that little retaining clip, which will hold that brake pad down when we put the caliper on. Now I've also put a bit of that Bendix brake lube on the ends of the slides, and pads are simply in like that. Now I'll bring you around here and I'll show you what's going on. See how that little clip goes on top? Probably get away with putting a bit of lube under that too. And the reason I use that lube is for brake shutter and the squealing that you get through here sometimes. And all it is when you think about it, when that brake rotor, if it has any movement, that's where you get the ee. So yeah, sorry for my sound effects. Now it's time we can put the caliper back on. putting that slide pin back in first, making sure that's lubed up. Another thing I do just before I put the brake caliper on is I put just a smear of that copper grease again on the back of the surface areas, just to hopefully prevent any of that brake squealing. Now we'll guide that down gently and hopefully we've lined it all up. Just push that slide bolt in there. There we go. So we'll just hold that in position. Now the caliper bolt for the slide, I put another touch of medium strength Loctite on it. We'll put that in and tighten that up. And that's pretty much back together. So from here, I go around and I'll put my foot on the brake pedal, give that a couple of pumps, and you'll feel it'll be a little bit soft to start off with. It should go hard. And double checking your brake fluid, which you've got the minimum and maximum. Now, if you're not sure what brake fluid your car takes, it should be written on top. Otherwise, I've been using .4 on my Commodore. And what that's done is push those two pistons out now, so these brake pads are prepped up and close to the brake disc, ready to stop. Put the wheel back on now, put it back on the ground, and we'll take it for a drive. So I won't be able to take this for a drive for a little bit, still got the interior in pieces, but what you want to be doing is holding your foot on the brake slightly, take it for a little bit of a drive, which will start to heat up the brakes, take your foot off, and then you want to do the bedding in procedure, which is about 10 times, drive for 50 kilometers an hour, and put your foot on the brake gently and pull up to almost a stop, let's say about 10k an hour, then take off again. Do 10 applications of that and your brakes are pretty much bedded in. Now I can make a video on this a little bit later if you're interested, let me know in the comments. Now if I've missed anything, this is just how I've done the brakes on Commodores for ages. If there's any other tips we can give others, throw it in the comments. And that's about it. Hopefully I've helped you out or given you some heads up of how to do it. All right, take it easy and see you when I'm looking at you.